questions on contracts?
Yeah, let me ask a question. Are most of our contracts renewed at the same time, or are they all over the place?
They are very close in their renewal cycle.
And how far into the future is that?
All of the changes that we're looking at for that contract renewal, the work is expected to begin next July. So the changes will be evaluated and determined in time to put those bid packages out.
How many different contractors would we use in a year?
Currently, we have 4 tree companies that work with us.
And so when we put out a bid for a contract, how many would bid on it?
We have a pre-qualification process in place today. So before a contractor can bid with us, they have to go through a process and submit a lot of information to KUB for review. Once we respond to them and let them know they're qualified for bid, they can bid for work. And we currently have 8 companies that are pre-qualified.
And I imagine, do we track complaints
We do.
per contractor? And do we have some level, is that not next year? Is
We
there a
have,
number? I mean,
we have dismissed individual crews from our system, and there have been entire companies dismissed from the system before. And obviously, customer complaints is one of the pieces of information that we look at to make those decisions, as well as safety, the quality of the work, lateral pruning. There's several components that go into that review, and we'll be looking at it to see what we may need to
and
add.
that's something that we monitor all the time.
Yes.
I mean, the quality of the work, obviously.
We have a process in place today where we do inspection of their work in progress and then 100% post-audit. And that's where we collect a lot of the data that goes into the contractor performance review.
When you say 100% post-audit, you actually go out there 100% and check?
We do. Our auditors walk the line and inspect every property.
Liz, just ballpark a number for me if you can. When we're at the peak of tree trimming activity, how many people, how many subcontract or contractor employees are out there in the field doing tree trimming work on behalf of KUB?
As a ballpark, it would be fair to say the average crew is made up of at least 3 crew members, and the number of crews on our system can range between 30 to 40 crews.
Okay, so we could have as many as 120 bodies out there at one time doing tree trimming activity on our behalf.
Yes.
Is there ever a time when there's no tree trimming going on throughout the year? I mean, I know that certain weather considerations may limit it on a day-by-day basis, but is there any time during the year where there's not any tree trimming going on?
We do work year-round because of the size of our system and the need to ensure safety and reliability on the system at all times. We try not to have a gap in any of our contracts so that we have storm resources as well. With that, I'll hand it over to Susan for communications.
Based on the 2 presentations you've already heard, it's probably fairly obvious that the panel spent a good bit of time talking about communications. And from my part of the presentation, it's really focused on 2 central areas. One has to do with the customer contacts that we're making, primarily in advance of pruning, but also while the work is going on. And second is in education about proper pruning and planting and tree care. The panel had the benefit of hearing from a number of experts in that area and felt that the things that they learned as a result of those presentations were very helpful in helping them understand about vegetation management, and they thought that those benefits should be shared with our customers. So that educational effort is part of our focus as well. The panel also recommended that we look for some professional design assistance in the design of our materials. Just as important as putting that information out there is making sure that it's in a format that is easily accessible, that people are going to want to pay attention to and read. And so we will be doing that. We'll also be testing our new materials with focus group to make sure that we're on the mark before we start implementing those in the field. The panel recommended that we increase our outreach efforts, whether it's to homeowner groups, to local government, to just general people who are planting, developers, anybody out there who has the potential to either prune or plant a tree in a way that could be impacted by our vegetation management program. And then, again, as you've heard in the other presentations, just in general, addressing the customer service experience and making sure that people who interact with us on vegetation management have a positive experience. Biggest focus on the communications side for us is probably going to, at least early on, be on our materials. And one of the big deliverables that we have on our list is a customer handbook. The panel was very clear in making sure, as you heard earlier, that customers need to know what their options are before it's too late, before we've already pruned their trees. So we want to put in one place all the information they need to know about our vegetation management program if they have questions. What the options are for subordinate pruning, for example, or dispute resolution, which you'll hear about in a moment. So that will be our one sort of central repository of everything you need to know if you're a customer and you have questions about vegetation management. We use that as an education tool when we're working with customers. It'll be something that's easily referred to and hopefully a good resource. We're also going to be revising our existing letters and door hangers to include more illustrations and make them, again, more visually appealing. And we have a sort of an informal benchmark that the panel set for us on our letter. As you know, we send a letter out in advance of pruning. It already comes in a green envelope, so hopefully customers notice it. The panel also recommended that the letter be short enough to read between the time you pull it out of the mailbox and you make it to your front door. So that's one of our design parameters. Make the letter more straightforward, easy to understand, make our door hangers more, have more illustrations so they're really easy to understand and people can know what to expect.
Susan, on the illustrations, I know you guys are going to show the L-shaped tree and the wedge-shaped tree. You're going to show also a tree that's topped off with pruning versus ladder pruning.
That's a great question. I can't answer for sure what will be on the door hangers, although I would say that probably falls more in the education side of our work.
Handbook maybe?
Yeah. Right.
Okay, because I think that's helpful. You know, everyone's saying, well, we're not top it off, but if you see the difference, I think that would be.
That's right. Our challenge, I think, is going to be to take lots of good information and put it in very small, very small words and spaces so that it's easy to digest, I guess you say. We're also going to add a new element to our communications plan. As you know, we send a letter out in advance of pruning. We also have our door hangers, and we have a personal contact from a planner. We're also going to add an advanced automated phone call to customers. It'll probably go out about the same time as the letter, just to let customers know we're coming and they should be looking for information about the pruning plans in their neighborhood. We're going to continuously improve our vegetation management information on the web, and one item that's already complete is if you go to our website today and view the vegetation management map, you can click on a neighborhood that is slated for pruning and actually view a more detailed map of where exactly in the neighborhood we're going to be. So that's an improvement that was recommended that we've actually already been able to implement. And you've heard a lot about guidelines for communication in the field, so I won't dwell too much on that. But again, the focus here is on making sure that what we put in our materials is also consistent in the field. So we will be making sure that whether it's contractors or staff members, everybody is up to date on the new changes to the program and that they're well equipped, again, like with the handout or that handbook or other resources, to explain those things clearly to customers. We'll be putting non-standard agreements in writing, whether it's an option on the pruning or whether it's a tree removal or any other agreement, so that the customer and KUB both have a very clear record of what is being agreed to, and hopefully that will help in our communication as well. And you've already heard a bit about the crew communications as well. Other recommendations that were made have to do with follow-up with customers, with the customer satisfaction survey. All this work is going to be great, but it would be nice to know from customers who've actually gone through it, who've been involved in our vegetation management process, how did they feel at the end of it? Did they feel like it worked well, or what recommendations would they have that we could use to improve our program? We want to be sure that in the phone center, the folks who take calls about this issue are up to date on what we are changing, what our new program is about, and that they have good, clear guidelines for what they can manage there and when it's appropriate to go ahead and refer that on to where they want to refer folks in vegetation management. And again, reinforcing that customer service should be friendly and helpful, and this is a case where these are often difficult circumstances, so it's always important to remind ourselves of that. Again, consistency is something that the panel stressed, and we're going to be striving to reinforce in all of our different communications methods. On the education point that we talked about a minute, there were several recommendations that the panel made specific to this area. One was to look for an opportunity to create a demonstration project. This would be a hands-on place where we could literally show people, this is where you should plant a tree, this is how you should prune it, this tree may not look pretty, but it is healthy. The kinds of things that they learned about in their work, we'd like to put that in a place where people can go and see it. We want to continue working on our web-based content. Social media is something that they recommended, and we think YouTube has a lot of opportunities for us to do video presentations where we can show what we're doing in the field, answer questions, let people know why we do what we do. We're going to beef up our speakers bureau. We're already out in neighborhoods a lot in advance of pruning, doing presentations, but we can add to that and build on those opportunities out in the field. And really a lot of things like this that we think we can do for relatively low or no cost. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit on the education side that we want to really work on and then add to that over time as our resources allow. That's what I have for communication. Do you have questions?
Benefit method. I've sat here and listened to our great people have demonstrated to us such a great job they're doing. As I look at the numbers, I understand that workload is coming on quite heavy for our folks. How do we plan to balance this workload that we have to actually go to our employees to carry out these duties?
I've got a couple of slides here that I think that will be responsive to that, so if you'll let me go to those, then.
I have one question for Susan. If you were coming in my neighborhood, I would get a phone call, a door hanger, and a letter.
At least.
Okay. And the letter comes with the bill, is that correct?
No, the
Or
letter
is it a
is
separate letter that's coming? Okay.
You know, everybody knows that.
No, the letter's separate, and in fact, it comes in a green envelope that says tree trimming information.
Okay, and those three things about a month, I mean, how far before the actual tree trimming?
The letter is several weeks, the door hanger is 1 to 2 weeks. Correct?
Okay. Because I would miss the letter. so I
Susan,
don't see it going.
You said phone call?
Yeah.
We get, everybody gets a phone call?
They're going to,
They're going to the automated.
It's an automated, it's a reverse robocall.
that's a new element, that's not.
It's something we learned from politicians.
And in trying to think back to reading the recommendations in the report, I'm correct that all the recommendations were directed to us, none to the community. Is that correct? I'm not asking.
That's correct. There were others that were discussed, but their charge was to KUB, so they only recommended to KUB. There are some that have been identified that others have an interest in, but that was not included in the recommendations.
Because one of the problems that we have, and we need help, I mean, we can do all that stuff, but if the community is not going to take some responsibility, the customer's not going to take some responsibility to read or to listen or to do whatever, I mean, it doesn't make any difference what we do.
Now, one exception, if you define community to be other contractors, other utilities, there was a recommendation that we try to coordinate with Bell South Comcast and others, the trim cycles and the vegetative trim, but I didn't include that in community because that's other businesses.
I'm referring specifically to customers because, you know, I went to some of the meetings, and when we had some of the people come in and comment, a frequent comment was, well, I never got anything. You didn't give me any notice. I didn't know anything. Well, that's not true. They just don't read it. You know, they're not paying attention. There's nothing and what you recommend that's going to help that problem. Maybe it help. I shouldn't say that. If you make it prettier, maybe they'll look at it or whatever. But you know, but if it's there, you don't read it. You don't listen to the phone call. It's going to get you out. So those are areas where we need help. We need help convincing customers that they've got some responsibility too. It's not just taking it.
Bruce, one of the things I learned was a L-shaped tree cut looks ugly, but it's probably more helpful for the tree. And I was telling them that the other day, if we could somehow get that picture on the cover of the paper or on the news, TV news, so you're hitting people over the head. This is not an unhealthy tree. This is a more healthy way to trim a tree. To me, that's the start of the education process. versus what you're saying, which I agree with you, you're gonna throw it away or not